lost his job and we had to relocate from our wonderful home in Kaduna to my hometown. And whilst living in that house, nothing at all will give it away that there are some days at home that we do not have food to eat. Yes, we spoke good English. We attended private school and lived in a 3-bedroom flat. But it would take grace to reveal to you that something was wrong. But then we had people who were sensitive to read between the lines. Probably all they wanted to do was just do some act of kindness, but for every time they did their act of kindness, it always saved the day. It could be small tailor's wife coming back from her farm and she just drops some tubers of cassava in front of our porch, asking my mom, process it, make garri for the kids. Or the akara woman, while me and my sister were skipping to school, she just loves seeing us skip to school, and she ties up some akara for us for lunch. Those days, people were really kind with food, especially to children, because they all believe the saying that it takes a whole village to train a child. I remember a particular Christmas. A few days to the Christmas, there was nothing for our Christmas kitchen. You can take away the Christmas clothes, take away going to see Father Christmas, but when there is no Christmas rice or chicken, you have stolen that Christmas from any child. My Christmas was at the verge of being stolen when kind-hearted people began to send in Christmas gifts. Honestly, they might not have an inkling that there was nothing for our Christmas kitchen. But from one person sending in a quarter bag of rice to another person giving us 1 bottle of groundnut oil, by the 25th morning, we had over 2 bags of rice, 6 chickens, and everything we needed for Christmas. Fast forward these days, things are beginning to change rapidly. People no longer feel the pulse of their neighbors. People no longer care to know what is happening in their neighbors' houses. We are no longer building bridges to strangers or accommodate people as much as we can. Even children are beginning to lose the empathy that they deserve. The only time the proverb, it takes a whole village to train a child, is probably when someone's child is going to be reprimanded or disciplined for being naughty. Nobody remembers to invoke that proverb when they see a hungry child on the street or when a child of school age is out of school. There are over 10.5 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, according to UNICEF. This is the world's highest number because it's over half of the out-of-school children in the world. And I begin to imagine, it's alarming. What if these parents know that there is a sustainable food program in school? Will they happily send their children to school knowing that they will have at least 1 nutritious meal a day? This issue of food is very serious. Madam Riskat, she's here. She runs the House of Rama Foundation. Her aim is to take as many out-of-school children back to school. It's a foundation that I support. So sometimes she gives feedback, and we got talking. And I realized that the incidence of students who have been enrolled in school, missing classes, or not showing up at all will be curbed if they have food to eat at home or if there will be food to eat in school. You may want to ask, okay, someone has taken up the educational care of your child. Can't you, as a parent, at least provide food since you're not paying fees? We'll take an example of Islamiyat. Islamiyat is under the educational care of the House of Rama Foundation. Her father used to be a bus conductor in Lagos, and one day while he was on his energetic duties, he fell off the bus and a car crushed him. Leaving Islamayat's mother with 3 children and no jobs, Islamayat's mother rose up to the occasion and began to do menial jobs, washing clothes for her neighbors and cleaning their compounds. Now, can we imagine how much burden will be lifted off her if she can access free food? I also have the case of Chigbu Obioma Miracle. Her father died of tuberculosis. She's also under the educational care of the House of Rama Foundation. Chigbo Obioma's mother is left with 5 children. 2 of them are physically challenged. One is blind, the other deaf and dumb. She cannot afford to send them to any special schools because her groundnut business was not even enough to pay the bills. Now, can we imagine if she can access free food anywhere? The incident of hunger in Nigerian homes is real. That you slept with a full stomach doesn't mean your neighbor did too. There was a Punch report some time ago, August in 2016. I would paraphrase the caption. It says, hunger or hard times drive more Nigerians into stealing food. It was at the peak of the recession, and we were hearing stories of how people were stealing food from their neighbors. And this particular Punch report talked about a Mr. Abdurrahman who broke into his neighbor's cupboard and stole a pot of stew and rice. Mrs. Abdurrahman, not caring where the food came from, quickly took it and shared it among her children. But their neighbor got back, realized he had been burgled, he raised an alarm, and both of them came out to apologize for what they did. Thank God they were forgiven. Now, that same report talked about a woman who who went into the market to steal food. She actually sold gari and beans. But unlike the Abdurrahmans, she was unfortunate. She was caught and beaten to a stupor. And what comes to my mind after hearing reports like this or reading them is, what if they have a good relationship with their neighbors? What if their neighbors were sensitive enough or emotionally intelligent enough to know that there was something wrong in their neighbor's house? Will they stoop that low to steal food? What if their neighbors came bearing gifts of food, just like those days down there in Agbo when people walked up to my house and just dropped food without us asking? They wouldn't steal. It's time we stop minding our business. We have been taught to mind our business. It's time we start looking out for our neighbors. It's time we start caring. Don't look at the cars they drive. Don't look at the houses that they live in. They might all just be a charade. Sometimes things go wrong. And if you are not emotionally intelligent enough, the fine faces, the makeups might just deceive you. So, it brings me to our legislations, our FMCGs, the food manufacturing companies, the big malls, and the restaurants we have all over. What do they do with their food that has passed the sell-by date, the best-by date? I once had a neighbor. She always had excess food, but the problem she had was preserving them, no thanks to the power situation in Nigeria. So whenever her pots and pans were full, the next thing she does was the food that's going rotten, she throws them into the gutter to decay. When the rain comes, it washes them away. Now, she became a gossip topic for all the women on the street because anybody who passes by the gutter and finds such food going to waste, they just said really bad things about her. I did not blame my neighbor, save for the environmental nuisance that she constituted, because probably she didn't know how to come bearing gifts of food to people without making her look like the boss or she's your savior. Some people don't like that feeling. Or probably she has been taught how to mind her business the way we have been taught to mind our business these days. So, while we are minding our business, will the FMCGs, the shopping malls and the restaurants be minding their business too? Will they be throwing their food away just the way my neighbors will be throwing it too? I believe if there are legislations that are put in place or laws put in place on how those people treat food, maybe food they did not sell that has not expired, but they can't just put them up there on the racks anymore. If there are legislations that will tell them what to do or have food banks, soup kitchens on our streets, I'm very sure those people will be happy to send in their food to the food banks or soup kitchens for tax rebates. There was a senator that was sitting here, I don't know, if you could take that back, because there are so many multinationals today, company, their CSR structure does not even include anything that has to do with nutrition. They will rather build beautiful gardens. The gardens are fine. But even in your workforce, food is important. What I'm talking about here is very important. Food is life. Our life revolves around food. When we don't eat, we will die. That's the truth. Now, this issue might look like, okay, it might not be too serious, especially for those in the rural areas, because, okay, they know how to plant gardens around their houses. They can plant peppers, aubergines, and co. The snails can even eat the rotten leaves, get fat for soup in their pot later. Sounds like paradise, very beautiful. But the rural areas these days, what's happening? They keep being threatened by insurgents and criminals. I'm very sure Khadija spoke about a town. I'm very sure they were farmers, but they're no longer there. Most of our rural areas have been sacked, and they are all living in the IDP camps. The food we eat in Lagos, like 80% of them come from these rural areas because they are farmers. Now, when they are not farming and they are not going about their own business, what happens to us down here? The food price, either there's no food or the food prices continue to skyrocket away from the rich of the poor. Islamayat's mom, who earns less than the minimum wage, will not be able to access food. I do what I do every weekend on TV, teaching people how to make meals that are easy, affordable, but even if they learn, they need the ingredients, they need the money. If we do not care for our neighbors, if we do not feel their pulse, what may befall us might be more than what we can combat. Hungry people are angry people. If I decide to pick one hungry child in a day and say, okay, I don't want this child hungry because I cannot stand my own children hungry, and you decide to do the same thing too, I'm very sure with our collective efforts, we'll be able to put food banks in our streets. While the Landlord Association comes together to talk about security, security is very good. Can they also remember to remind residents that, okay, if you've got so much, like my neighbor who is wasteful, can you please send it to the neighborhood food bank, so that those who do not have, like Chigbo Bioma's mother, who has worked so hard with her groundnut business, can at least walk in there and pick some food. Let us not wait for the government. This transcends our tribes, religion, or whatever we are. It's about us, and it's about our children. Thank you very much.